Hello there, and welcome back to Deep Sleep Seas. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Maybe the day felt long, or maybe you just prefer drifting off to the gentle rhythm of ocean stories rather than counting anything at all. Either way, you're exactly where you need to be. Let your shoulders drop, your breathing slow, and your mind begin to wander toward warmer waters, because tonight we're diving to the coral reefs of the Indo-Pacific, where one of the ocean's most extraordinary creatures makes its home among the rocks and sand. A small marvel dressed in colors we can barely imagine, wielding powers that seem impossible for something so compact. Tonight we're visiting the mantis shrimp, the color dancers of the reef, and the stories they carry are stranger and more beautiful than fiction. Before we begin, if these ocean journeys help you rest, consider subscribing so the next voyage finds you easily. And if you're still awake enough, let me know where in the world you're listening from. I read every message. Now, let the current carry you down, past the surface sparkle, past the shallow gardens, down to where the reef meets sandy patches and rocky crevices, down to where something small and brilliant is watching the world through eyes unlike any other. The mantis shrimp is not actually a shrimp at all. This is the first gentle deception, a naming that occurred long ago when sailors and scientists first encountered these creatures and tried to place them in familiar categories. They saw the segmented body, the way it moved through water, and called it a shrimp. But mantis shrimp belong to their own ancient order, Stomatopoda, cousins to crabs and lobsters, but following an evolutionary path that split away more than 400 million years ago. That's long before dinosaurs, before forests covered the land, back when the ocean was still writing the early chapters of complex life. And in all that time, through mass extinctions and shifting continents, through ice ages and warming periods, the mantis shrimp persisted, refined, and became something utterly unique. There are more than 450 species of mantis shrimp scattered across the world's tropical and subtropical seas, each one a variation on a theme of brilliance and lethality. Most live in the warm embrace of the Indo-Pacific, from the eastern coast of Africa all the way to the Hawaiian Islands, though a few species venture into cooler waters and some make their homes in the Caribbean. They range in size from creatures you could hold between 2 fingers to specimens stretching nearly 18 inches long, though most settle comfortably in the palm of your hand. The largest ever recorded measured 46 centimeters, a true giant among its kind, though even the smallest carry all the astonishing features that make this group so remarkable. When you first see a mantis shrimp, assuming you're lucky enough to spot one in its natural habitat, what strikes you is the color, not just color, but color that seems to vibrate, to shimmer, to announce itself with an intensity that feels almost aggressive in its beauty. The peacock mantis shrimp, perhaps the most famous of the family, wears a shell of electric blues and greens, punctuated with spots of brilliant orange and red. Its legs glow crimson, and its eyes, mounted on movable stalks, shine with an iridescent purple that catches the filtered sunlight like polished amethyst. These are not the subtle camouflage patterns of most sea creatures. These are the colors of neon signs, of tropical birds, of things that want to be seen and remembered. But not all mantis shrimp dress so boldly. The zebra mantis shrimp, the largest species, wears cream and brown stripes that help it blend with sandy bottoms and rubble fields. Red sea mantis shrimp are more modest still, beige with thin red stripes and darker tail segments. Some species are primarily brown or olive, their bodies designed for concealment rather than display. Yet even these quieter cousins possess the same remarkable eyes, the same devastating weaponry, the same ancient intelligence that defines the group. The color is just one expression of their nature, not the whole story. The bodies of mantis shrimp are segmented like all crustaceans, but their proportions are unusual. Their carapace, the hard shell covering, only protects the rear portion of the head and the first few segments of the thorax, leaving much of the body more flexible and exposed. This gives them a distinctive profile, somewhat flattened, able to slip into narrow crevices and twist through tight spaces. They have compound eyes mounted on stalks that can move independently in 3 dimensions, tracking different targets at once, an ability that gives them an almost alien appearance when you watch them looking around. 3 pairs of walking legs support them as they patrol near their burrows, while other appendages are modified for different purposes, including the ones that made them famous, the raptorial appendages folded beneath their head, ready to strike. Ancient peoples who encountered mantis shrimp gave them names that reflected their experience. The Assyrians called them sea locusts, perhaps recognizing the devastating efficiency with which they could strip an area of prey. In Australia, they're known as prawn killers, a name fishermen gave them after discovering the damage they could inflict on catch. Modern divers and marine aquarium keepers call them thumb splitters, a warning earned through painful experience. If you handle a mantis shrimp carelessly, those folded appendages can unfold faster than you can react, delivering a blow that can split skin, break bones, or shatter the glass of an aquarium tank. These are not creatures to be taken lightly, despite their small size. They are ancient warriors wrapped in carnival colors, patient hunters with reflexes that make cobras look slow. Most mantis shrimp spend the majority of their lives in burrows. This is the center of their existence, the place from which all activities radiate. A mantis shrimp burrow might be a U-shaped tunnel carved into sand, or a natural crevice in coral rock that the shrimp has claimed and modified to suit its needs. The type of burrow depends on the type of mantis shrimp. There are two great divisions in the family, defined not by color or size but by hunting strategy, and these strategies determine where and how they live. Spearers have raptorial appendages lined with sharp spines and barbs like serrated harpoons. These mantis shrimp prefer soft sediments, sand and mud, where they can dig elaborate tunnels. They spend their time at the burrow entrance, head up, eyes scanning, waiting for something soft-bodied to drift or swim past. A fish, a shrimp, a squid, anything with flesh that their barbed spears can pierce and hold. When the moment comes, the appendages unfold in a blur, stabbing into the prey and dragging it back into the burrow where it can be consumed in safety. Spearers are ambush predators, patient as stones, explosive when opportunity presents itself. Smashers, by contrast, have appendages that end in heavily calcified clubs, more like hammers than spears. These mantis shrimp prefer harder substrates, cavities in coral reefs or holes in rock formations. Their prey are creatures with shells, snails and crabs and clams and oysters, things that need to be cracked open before they can be eaten. Smashers are more active hunters, venturing farther from their burrows, searching for victims, striking them with tremendous force, and dragging the broken bodies home. Their clubs are engineering marvels, layered structures that can deliver blow after blow without shattering, absorbing impacts that would destroy human-made materials. But whether spearer or smasher, the burrow is home. It's where they rest during inactive hours, where they retreat when threatened, where they mate and lay eggs and tend their young. A mantis shrimp might occupy the same burrow for months or years, defending it fiercely against intruders. As they grow, they may need to move to larger accommodations, abandoning an old burrow that no longer fits and either claiming an empty one or excavating a new space. These abandoned burrows don't go to waste. Small fish, shrimps, and other reef creatures often move into vacated mantis shrimp homes, finding shelter in structures that were carved by one of the reef's most efficient engineers. The relationship between a mantis shrimp and its burrow is more than practical. It's personal. Studies have shown that mantis shrimp can recognize their neighbors, the other mantis shrimp living in nearby burrows, and they treat familiar neighbors differently than strangers. Neighbors get a degree of tolerance, a recognition that everyone needs space and that constant fighting would be exhausting for all involved. Strangers, however, are met with immediate hostility, displays of threat or outright attacks to drive them away. This requires memory, recognition, and something that looks very much like social intelligence. The mantis shrimp is not just a reflexive predator, it's a creature that knows its place in a community, remembers faces, and makes decisions based on past interactions. The eyes of the mantis shrimp are where the strangeness really begins. If you could ask evolution to design the most sophisticated vision system possible, you might end up with something like what the mantis shrimp possesses. These are compound eyes, made up of thousands of individual units called ommatidia, like the eyes of insects and other crustaceans. But while most compound eyes are relatively simple structures optimized for detecting motion, the mantis shrimp eye is layered with complexity that scientists are still working to fully understand. Each eye is divided into 3 regions. There are 2 flattened hemispheres, one on top and one on bottom, separated by a band of specialized ommatidia running across the middle called the midband. This midband is where most of the color processing happens, and it's unlike anything else in the animal kingdom. The hemispheres provide spatial vision, helping the mantis shrimp see its environment in 3 dimensions, tracking movement and judging distances. They're sensitive to green and ultraviolet light, and they can detect linear polarized light, which is light waves vibrating in a single plane. This alone would make them impressive, but the midband is where things become extraordinary. The midband contains between 2 and 6 rows of ommatidia, depending on the species, and packed into these rows are up to 16 different types of photoreceptor cells. To put this in perspective, humans have 3 types of color photoreceptors in our eyes. The cones sensitive to red, green, and blue light. Most mammals have only 2. Even the few animals with more than 3 usually stop at 4 or 5. Mantis shrimp have 12 to 16, each one tuned to a different portion of the light spectrum. From deep ultraviolet wavelengths, we can't perceive all the way through the visible spectrum and into the far red. 4 of these photoreceptors are dedicated just to ultraviolet light, detecting fine gradations in a range of the spectrum that's completely invisible to us. For years, people assumed that having so many photoreceptor types meant mantis shrimp must see a dazzling range of colors far beyond human imagination. And in a sense, they do perceive light in ways we cannot. But here's where the science gets interesting, and perhaps a little humbling. Research published in 2014 revealed that mantis shrimp are actually not very good at discriminating between similar colors. When tested, they couldn't reliably tell the difference between wavelengths that were closer than about 25 nanometers apart, a task that humans perform easily. So what are all those photoreceptors for? The answer seems to be speed and efficiency. Human color vision works through comparison. Our 3 types of cones respond to different wavelengths, but there's significant overlap in what they detect. Our brains compare the signals from all 3 types, doing complex calculations to figure out what color we're looking at. It's accurate, but it requires processing time and neural machinery. Mantis shrimp appear to use a completely different system. Each of their photoreceptors is narrowly tuned to a specific wavelength, almost like 12 to 16 separate color channels. When light hits their midband, they get an immediate reading, a rapid identification of color without the need for comparison and calculation. It's less precise than human vision, but it's much, much faster. This makes sense for an animal that lives by split-second reactions. A mantis shrimp hunting near its burrow needs to instantly recognize whether that flash of movement is prey, predator, or rival. It can't afford to spend time processing visual information. The midband system gives it immediate color identification, a yes or no answer about what it's seeing. The trade-off is reduced discrimination between similar shades, but in the mantis shrimp's world, that's acceptable. Speed matters more than subtle color gradations, but the midband has another limitation. It only covers a narrow slice of the eye's visual field, a thin band running across the middle. To see colors across their entire field of view, mantis shrimp have to move their eyes, scanning them across objects in quick, darting movements. This is something scientists call serial color vision, building up a color picture piece by piece rather than seeing the whole thing at once. And mantis shrimp do this constantly, their eyes making rapid scanning movements even when they appear to be sitting still. They're actively exploring their visual world, painting it in their internal awareness stripe by stripe. The upper and lower hemispheres of each eye can also detect polarized light, but in a different way. Linear polarized light vibrations in a single plane, like light reflecting off water or shiny surfaces. Many animals can detect this, including bees and cephalopods. But mantis shrimp, at least 6 species so far identified, can detect circular polarized light, a form where the light waves spiral as they travel. This is incredibly rare. No other animal has been confirmed to have this ability. Scientists aren't entirely sure what mantis shrimp use it for, but the leading theory involves communication. Many mantis shrimp have patches on their bodies and shells that reflect polarized light in specific ways. These patterns are invisible to most other animals, including potential predators and most prey. But to another mantis shrimp, these patterns might be clearly visible, allowing for a secret communication channel. A male could display his fitness to females using polarized light signals. A territorial resident could warn off intruders with patterns that say, essentially, "I'm dangerous, this burrow is occupied, move along." During the breeding season, when identifying the right partner matters, these hidden signals could be crucial. They can see each other clearly while remaining camouflaged to everything else on the reef. Adding to this visual arsenal, mantis shrimp can detect ultraviolet light at the far end of the spectrum, shorter wavelengths than humans can perceive. Many reef fish and invertebrates have ultraviolet patterns on their bodies, invisible to the human eye, but potentially obvious to a mantis shrimp. Some coral appears quite different in ultraviolet light, helping the shrimp identify good habitat. And during mating, mantis shrimp bodies fluoresce, absorbing ultraviolet light and re-emitting it at longer wavelengths. This fluorescence matches perfectly with the wavelengths their eye pigments can detect, suggesting it's a deliberate signal, part of their courtship display. Each eye can also move independently of the other, swiveling in different directions, looking at different things simultaneously. And perhaps most remarkable, each eye has trinocular vision. That means each eye by itself can judge depth and distance. Most animals need two eyes working together to perceive depth through binocular vision. Mantis shrimp can do it with just one, because their midband creates three separate views of objects near the eye's center line. It's like having three mini-eyes within each eye, giving them depth perception even if they lost one eye entirely. For a predator that needs to strike with millimeter precision, this redundancy is invaluable. The strike of a mantis shrimp is one of nature's most devastating attacks. Whether spearer or smasher, the basic mechanism is the same. A spring-loaded appendage that can be released with explosive force. But smashers with their famous clubs have been studied most intensively, and the numbers they produce are almost unbelievable for an animal that fits in your hand. The raptorial appendage of a smasher is divided into segments, like a jointed arm. The segment closest to the body is called the meras, thick with muscle. Beyond that is the carpus, then the propodus, and finally the dactyl, the club itself. When preparing to strike, the mantis shrimp cocks its appendage back, folding it up against its body. As it does this, muscles in the meras contract, building tension in a saddle-shaped structure made of elastic proteins. This saddle acts like a compressed spring, storing energy. At the same time, a latch mechanism holds everything in place, preventing the appendage from releasing prematurely. When the mantis shrimp sees a target, it releases the latch. The stored energy in the saddle explodes forward, catapulting the club outward with breathtaking acceleration. The appendage reaches speeds between 50 and 80 kilometers per hour, around 23 meters per second in water, a medium that normally slows movement dramatically. To achieve this from a standing start, the appendage accelerates at over 10,000 times the force of gravity, 10,400 Gs to be precise. Fighter pilots lose consciousness at around 9 Gs. Mantis shrimp clubs routinely experience accelerations more than 1,000 times greater without any structural damage. The club itself is a marvel of biological engineering. It's made of layers like plywood, each layer oriented at a different angle to the ones above and below. This arrangement, called a bulligand structure, gives the club incredible toughness. When a crack tries to form from an impact, it hits a boundary between layers and has to change direction, spreading the damage across multiple planes instead of allowing a single catastrophic fracture. The outer impact region is extremely hard, made of highly mineralized material that can strike again and again without wearing down. Beneath it, the periodic region has a structure that looks like a fingerprint in cross-section, another clever arrangement to absorb and distribute impact forces. And deeper still, the striated region connects everything to the rest of the appendage, flexible enough to handle the shock of sudden deceleration. When the club strikes a hard target like a snail shell, it hits with a force of anywhere from 400 to 1,500 newtons. That's equivalent to having a 340-pound object fall directly onto something. For an animal that might weigh a few ounces, this is an astonishing amount of force, thousands of times its own body weight. It's enough to crack clamshells, shatter crab carapaces, and break the glass of poorly designed aquarium tanks. Stories circulate among marine aquarium hobbyists of mantis shrimp that hitchhiked into tanks hidden in live rock, only to announce their presence by cracking a quarter-inch thick glass wall. But the initial impact is only the first blow, because the club moves so fast through water, it creates a phenomenon called cavitation. As the club accelerates forward, it moves water out of the way faster than the water can flow back in, creating a region of extremely low pressure directly behind the club. Water is mostly incompressible, but under very low pressure, it can vaporize, forming bubbles of water vapor where liquid water should be. These cavitation bubbles expand for a fraction of a millisecond, then the surrounding water pressure crushes them and they collapse violently. When a cavitation bubble collapses, it generates a shock wave, a pulse of pressure and heat, and even light. The collapse happens so fast that it superheats a tiny point of water, creating a flash of light called sonoluminescence. This light is too dim and too brief for human eyes to detect directly, but specialized equipment can capture it. The temperature at the point of collapse can reach thousands of degrees for an infinitesimal moment, and the shock wave itself carries significant force, enough to stun or damage prey. High-speed cameras filming at 40,000 frames per second have captured this process in extraordinary detail. The club strikes, and you can see cavitation bubbles forming in its wake, like a trail of tiny explosions. They expand, glow faintly, and collapse, each one producing a miniature shockwave. These shockwaves typically arrive 390 to 480 microseconds after the initial impact, hitting the target again while it's still reeling from the first blow. Force measurements show that the cavitation collapse can generate up to 500 newtons of additional force, about a third as powerful as the initial strike. The prey, in other words, gets hit twice, once by the club and once by the collapse of physics itself. This double strike strategy means that even if the mantis shrimp misses its target slightly, the cavitation shockwave might still stun or kill the prey. A near miss becomes a hit. For creatures that make their living cracking shells, this redundancy is invaluable. And for researchers studying high-speed impacts and cavitation, the mantis shrimp has become an unexpected teacher. Engineers examining the structure of the club have found inspiration for new types of armor and impact-resistant materials. The way the club withstands repeated high-force impacts without breaking has led to proposals for better vehicle armor, sports equipment, and aerospace components. A small crustacean living in a burrow on a coral reef may yet change how we design protection for humans. Life for a mantis shrimp revolves around its burrow, but that doesn't mean they're sedentary. Depending on the species, they can be active during the day, at night, or during twilight hours. Diurnal species emerge in daylight, when the reef is bustling with activity, using their extraordinary vision to hunt and patrol. Nocturnal species wait for darkness, when many of their prey are more active or less vigilant, striking from ambush under moonlight or starlight. Some species are crepuscular, most active at dawn and dusk, those liminal times when the reef is transitioning between day shift and night shift. Smashers tend to be more active hunters, leaving their burrows to search for food. A peacock mantis shrimp might patrol an area of several meters around its home, investigating crevices, flipping rocks with its clubs, searching for snails or crabs. When it finds prey, the hunt is brief and violent. A few powerful strikes crack the shell, and the mantis shrimp drags the broken body back home to eat in safety. Smashers are also known to hoard food, storing pieces of uneaten prey in their burrows for later consumption. This behavior suggests forward planning, an understanding that the reef won't always provide, and that having reserves is wise. Spearers, by contrast, are more sedentary hunters. They position themselves at the burrow entrance, often with just their head and eyes exposed, and wait. They can remain motionless for long periods, patient as any ambush predator, conserving energy until opportunity arrives. When a fish or shrimp passes close enough, the attack is explosive. The barbed appendages shoot forward, impaling the prey and dragging it back into the burrow before it can escape or alert others. Spearers eat softer prey, creatures that don't require the bone-crushing force of a smasher's club. Fish, worms, smaller shrimp, squid and cuttlefish, anything with flesh that can be pierced. But whether spearer or smasher, mantis shrimp are formidable predators. They can take down prey much larger than themselves, something few small predators can do safely. Their combination of speed, power, and precision makes them apex predators in their weight class. On a coral reef, where competition is intense and danger is everywhere, the mantis shrimp has carved out a niche through sheer effectiveness. They're not the biggest, not the most numerous, but they're among the most capable. Territory defense is serious business for mantis shrimp. Their burrows represent significant investment, and losing one means starting over, which costs time and energy, and leaves them vulnerable. When two mantis shrimp meet near a boundary, what happens next depends on several factors. If they're neighbors who have encountered each other many times, they might engage in a ritualized threat display rather than actual combat. Each shrimp will raise its raptorial appendages, displaying the colored spots and patterns on the inside surface of the clubs or spears. These displays are called the meral spread because they expose the meras, the segment behind the club or spear. The meral spots on many species are brilliantly colored, often in contrasting shades that stand out even in the chaotic visual environment of a reef. A mantis shrimp showing its merle spread is saying clearly and unambiguously, "I am dangerous, I am prepared to fight, and you should reconsider." Often, this is enough. The receiving mantis shrimp assesses the display, decides discretion is the better part of valor, and retreats. No one gets hurt, no energy is wasted on combat. This only works, of course, if both parties are being honest about their capabilities. Bluffing is risky when your opponent might call you on it. But if displays aren't sufficient, actual combat can occur. Mantis shrimp fights are ritualized but real. Smashers strike each other's telson, the heavily armored tail segment, with their clubs. These are restrained blows by mantis shrimp standards, not the full force strikes they'd use on prey, but still powerful enough to make a point. The telson is the most armored part of a mantis shrimp's body for exactly this reason, able to absorb strikes that would seriously injure other body parts. The shrimp take turns striking, almost like a duel, until one decides it has had enough and retreats. The winner takes or keeps the territory, and remarkably, the loser remembers. Studies have shown that after a fight, the losing mantis shrimp will avoid the winner for up to a month, recognizing it either by sight or by chemical signature. They remember not just who they fought, but who won. This kind of memory and recognition suggests significant cognitive abilities. Mantis shrimp aren't operating on pure instinct. They're learning, remembering, making decisions based on past experience. They know their neighbors, they remember rivals, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. For a long time, invertebrates were thought to be largely instinctive, following genetic programming without much flexibility. The mantis shrimp is one of many creatures that have forced scientists to reconsider that assumption. The ocean is full of intelligence, just not always in forms we immediately recognize. When it comes time to reproduce, mantis shrimp employ a variety of strategies depending on the species. Some are serial monogamists, forming pair bonds that last for a breeding season before potentially finding new partners. Others are promiscuous, mating with multiple partners over their lifetime. But a few species, including some of the zebra mantis shrimp, form lifelong monogamous pairs, sharing a single burrow for up to 20 years. This is unusual behavior for crustaceans and represents a significant commitment. In monogamous pairs, the male and female share the work of survival. The male typically does most of the hunting, venturing out to find food for both himself and his mate. The female, especially when brooding eggs, remains in the burrow for protection. If the male is killed while hunting, the female can starve, unable to leave the eggs undefended long enough to hunt effectively. This arrangement requires trust and cooperation, qualities we don't usually associate with crustaceans. But mantis shrimp, repeatedly, demonstrate that they're not usual crustaceans. Courtship begins when a male approaches a female's burrow. This is a delicate moment. The female could easily mistake the male for an intruder and attack him. To avoid this, males perform elaborate displays using their colorful bodies and appendages to signal their intentions. They may perform dances, moving their bodies in specific patterns, showing off the brightness and reflectivity of their colored patches. If the female is interested, she'll emerge and join the display. The two shrimp will circle each other, displaying, assessing, communicating in ways that combine visual signals, chemical cues, and probably polarized light patterns we can't detect. If all goes well, they'll retreat into the burrow for mating. Mantis shrimp mate belly to belly, and the male uses specialized appendages called gonadopods to transfer sperm to the female. Fertilization can happen internally or externally, depending on the species. The female then lays anywhere from a few hundred to several thousand eggs, tiny spheres that she coats with a sticky adhesive secreted from specialized glands. These eggs clump together in a mass, which the female holds with her front appendages, clutching them close to her body. For the next several weeks, the female becomes entirely dedicated to egg care. She constantly moves and turns the eggs, ensuring they're evenly exposed to water flow. She cleans them with her mouthparts, removing any debris or fungus that tries to settle. She fans them with her pleopods, small swimming appendages under her tail, creating water circulation to supply oxygen, and she doesn't eat. Brooding females fast completely, unwilling to leave their eggs undefended even for the time it would take to hunt. This is an extraordinary investment of energy and resources, and it shows just how important each clutch of eggs is to the mantis shrimp's reproductive success. Males in species that pair bond may help guard the burrow during this time. but they don't usually participate directly in egg care. That's the female's domain. However, males do continue hunting, and in monogamous species they bring food back for both themselves and their mate after the eggs hatch. This cooperative breeding is rare in the crustacean world and represents a significant evolutionary development. The eggs develop over a period that varies by species and water temperature, typically between 10 days and 2 months. When they hatch, what emerges doesn't look much like an adult mantis shrimp. The larvae are elongated and nearly transparent, with huge eyes relative to their body size and swimming appendages that propel them through the water. They're planktonic, drifting with currents, feeding on even smaller organisms, growing and molting through a series of developmental stages. This planktonic phase lasts about 3 months, though it can vary. During this time, the larvae are vulnerable to predation and dispersal. Many don't survive. Those that do eventually undergo a transformation, developing the body plan and weaponry of adult mantis shrimp. As they grow larger and more capable, they begin to settle, seeking appropriate habitat where they can dig or claim their first burrow. This might be close to where they hatched, or it might be hundreds of miles away, depending on where the currents carried them. Juvenile mantis shrimp face all the same challenges as adults, but with less experience and smaller, less developed weapons. They need to find food, avoid predators, establish territory. As they grow, they molt their exoskeletons periodically, shedding the old shell and growing a new, larger one. After each molt, there's a vulnerable period of a few days when the new shell is still soft, and the mantis shrimp is unable to use its weapons effectively. During this time, they remain hidden in their burrows, waiting for the new armor to harden. This is one of the few times when a mantis shrimp is truly helpless. Sexual maturity comes within a few months to a year, depending on the species and environmental conditions. Once mature, a mantis shrimp can reproduce multiple times over its life. Some species have been documented mating 20 or 30 times, producing tens of thousands of offspring over their lifetime, though only a tiny fraction of these will survive to reproduce themselves. This high fecundity is typical of marine invertebrates, a strategy to overcome the brutal mathematics of ocean mortality. Lifespan varies considerably across species and environments. In the wild, most mantis shrimp live between 3 and 6 years, though some species likely live longer. In captivity, where threats are reduced and food is reliably provided, individuals have lived for 20 years or more. This longevity, combined with their learning and memory abilities, means that an old mantis shrimp has accumulated significant experience. It knows its territory intimately, recognizes many neighbors, has fought and won numerous battles, has mated and raised multiple clutches of young. It's a veteran of the reef, carrying lessons learned over decades of survival. The intelligence of mantis shrimp continues to surprise researchers. In laboratory settings, they've demonstrated problem-solving abilities that rival those of some vertebrates. They can learn to associate specific colors with food rewards, and they remember these associations for weeks. They can navigate mazes, remembering the correct path after only a few trials. They show individual personalities, some bold and aggressive, others more cautious and retiring. And as mentioned, they remember other individuals, both neighbors and rivals, adjusting their behavior based on past interactions. This cognitive sophistication makes sense when you consider the complexity of their lives. A mantis shrimp has to manage territory, hunt effectively, avoid predators, find mates, recognize eggs from debris, coordinate with a partner in some cases, and make constant decisions about when to fight and when to flee. These aren't simple tasks. They require processing information, weighing options, remembering outcomes. The mantis shrimp brain, though tiny by vertebrate standards, is clearly capable of impressive feats of memory and learning. The role of mantis shrimp in reef ecosystems is significant despite their relatively small size. As predators, they help control populations of snails, crabs, small fish, and other invertebrates. On reefs where certain species become too abundant, mantis shrimp can provide a natural check, preventing any one type from dominating. Their burrows, when abandoned, become homes for other species, adding structural complexity to the reef environment. And their activity, digging and moving sediment, helps aerate the substrate and recycle nutrients, processes that support the health of the entire ecosystem. They're also prey, though not as much as you might expect given their size. Large fish, moray eels, octopuses, and some species of sharks will eat mantis shrimp if they can catch them. But catching one isn't easy. A mantis shrimp in its burrow is well defended, and even if extracted, it can deliver strikes powerful enough to injure or deter many would-be predators. Octopuses, with their intelligence and flexibility, are probably the most successful mantis shrimp predators, able to reach into burrows and subdue the occupant, without exposing themselves to repeated strikes. Humans interact with mantis shrimp in various ways. In some Asian countries, particularly Japan and Vietnam, certain species are considered delicacies and are caught for food. They're typically steamed or boiled, and the meat, while requiring some effort to extract, is said to be sweet and flavorful. However, fishing for mantis shrimp is not without hazards. Fishermen have reported being struck by particularly large or aggressive individuals, resulting in cut hands and broken fingers. The nickname thumb splitter is well earned. In the aquarium trade, mantis shrimp are both sought after and feared. Their colors are spectacular, and their behavior is endlessly fascinating to observe. A well-kept peacock mantis shrimp in a species-only tank can be a centerpiece display, a conversation starter, a window into a very different form of life. But keeping them requires special considerations. They need tanks with thick glass or acrylic walls, as they can crack standard aquarium glass. They need appropriate substrate for burrowing and plenty of live rock for crevices. They need to be fed a diet of hard-shelled prey if they're smashers or soft-bodied prey if they're spearers. And most importantly, they cannot be kept with most other fish or invertebrates, as they'll likely kill and eat their tank mates. Many aquarium hobbyists have mantis shrimp stories, usually involving a specimen that hitchhiked into their tank hidden in live rock. These accidental introductions often announce themselves through mysterious disappearances of fish and shrimp, strange clicking sounds coming from the rockwork at night, and sometimes a sudden crack appearing in the glass. Finding and removing an established mantis shrimp from a mature reef tank is notoriously difficult, as they're intelligent enough to avoid traps and can retreat deep into the rockwork where they're impossible to reach. From a conservation standpoint, mantis shrimp populations are generally considered stable. Most species are widespread and abundant in appropriate habitat, and they're not currently threatened with extinction. However, they face the same pressures as all coral reef organisms: rising ocean temperatures, ocean acidification, habitat destruction, pollution. All these factors degrade the reef ecosystems that mantis shrimp depend on. If coral reefs continue to decline globally, mantis shrimp populations will likely decline as well, not because they're being directly targeted, but because their homes are disappearing. Some species are more vulnerable than others. Those with restricted ranges, living only around certain islands or reef systems, could be at risk if those specific habitats are damaged. And species that depend on very specific types of burrow substrate could struggle if coastal development and destructive fishing practices alter the sea floor. Marine protected areas where fishing and development are restricted provide refuges for mantis shrimp populations and help ensure that at least some reefs remain healthy enough to support their full complement of species. The mantis shrimp has also become something of an internet celebrity in recent years, featured in viral videos and online comics celebrating their ridiculous power and alien sensory abilities. This pop culture awareness has a strange benefit. It gets people interested in marine biology and conservation. If a video about a rainbow-colored crustacean that punches like a boxer and sees impossible colors makes someone think more carefully about protecting coral reefs, then the mantis shrimp's fame serves a larger purpose. Scientists continue to study mantis shrimp for insights that go far beyond zoology. Their eyes have inspired new types of camera sensors that can detect polarized light, useful for medical imaging and robotics. Their clubs have influenced the design of impact-resistant materials from body armor to aircraft panels. Their strike mechanism has been analyzed by engineers interested in building faster, more efficient actuators for robots and machines. The mantis shrimp, simply by existing and doing what it's always done, has become a teacher to human technology. There's also ongoing research into how their visual system processes information so quickly. If we could understand the neural mechanisms that allow mantis shrimp to identify colors in milliseconds without complex calculations, we might be able to design better computer vision systems, faster image recognition algorithms, more efficient ways to process visual data. The mantis shrimp's brain, a tiny cluster of neurons, is accomplishing something that still challenges our most powerful computers. Understanding how could revolutionize machine vision. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine yourself on a coral reef in the warm waters of the Pacific. The sun filters down through clear water, painting everything in shades of blue and green. You're hovering near a patch of sand at the base of a coral outcrop, watching the slow dance of reef life. A parrotfish drifts by, grazing on algae. A school of damselfish hovers above their territory, their colors bright in the midday light. And there, in a small crevice between rocks, you see a flash of iridescent color. The mantis shrimp emerges slightly from its burrow, just head and eyes visible. Those eyes, purple as amethyst, swivel independently, scanning the water. It's watching everything, processing information through a visual system that experiences light in ways you can barely imagine. It sees the ultraviolet patterns on the damselfish invisible to you. It detects the polarized light reflecting off the parrotfish's scales. It scans the water with its mid-band, identifying colors in rapid sweeps, building a picture of its world stripe by stripe. For now, it's content to watch. The reef is active, but no prey has drifted close enough to warrant the explosive energy of a strike. The mantis shrimp is patient, as ancient patience runs through its lineage, 400 million years of waiting for the right moment. Its burrow is clean, well maintained, the entrance positioned to give a clear view while remaining defensible. This is its territory, known intimately, every rock and coral head mapped in its memory. Nearby, in another burrow, a neighbor mantis shrimp rests as well. They've encountered each other many times, have displayed and threatened and eventually established boundaries that both respect. There's no need for combat now. They've reached an understanding, a small piece of order in the chaos of the reef. The first mantis shrimp sees its neighbor emerge briefly, watches as the neighbor scans the water, notes when it retreats. All is well. The territory is secure. As afternoon fades toward evening, the mantis shrimp might venture out for a brief patrol, checking the boundaries, searching for food, ensuring no intruders have tried to claim portions of its range. Or it might remain in place, conserving energy, waiting for the transition to darkness when different prey emerge. The decision is made based on factors you can't observe. The mantis shrimp's hunger level, its assessment of current reef activity, the memory of recent hunting success or failure, the presence or absence of larger predators in the area. It's thinking in its own way, making choices that will determine whether tonight brings food or hunger, safety or danger. But for now, in this suspended moment of late afternoon, the mantis shrimp simply exists, a small marvel in rainbow armor. A predator and engineer and visual virtuoso, ancient and modern at once. It sees the world through eyes that process 12 or 16 channels of color, detects light in forms invisible to almost everything else, judges distances with built-in redundancy, scans the reef in rapid sweeps of its midband. It possesses weapons that can crack shells and break glass, structures engineered at the molecular level to withstand impacts that would shatter human-made materials. It remembers neighbors, recognizes rivals, guards its home with fierce dedication. And it waits, as its ancestors have waited in these same waters for longer than continents have held their current shapes, for longer than ice caps have frozen and melted and frozen again, for longer than primates have walked upright. The mantis shrimp's lineage extends back through eras that would make our entire human story seem like the last few seconds before midnight. And in all that time, through all those changes, they have persisted not through size or numbers but through effectiveness, through the perfect refinement of their particular way of being. The ocean is full of such marvels, creatures whose lives and abilities challenge our assumptions about what's possible in biology. The mantis shrimp is just one, though perhaps among the most spectacular, a reminder that the alien and the extraordinary don't require distant planets or imaginary monsters. They exist here now in the sunlit shallows and reef crevices of our own world, waiting for those patient enough to look, to watch, to wonder. As the day wanes and the light shifts, the mantis shrimp retreats slightly deeper into its burrow. Night brings different risks and opportunities, and conserving energy is always wise. It will rest now, its body motionless but its eyes still moving, still watching, still processing the endless stream of information that flows through its sophisticated sensory systems. Even in rest, it remains aware, ready to respond to threat or opportunity with reflexes that make lightning look slow. And you, drifting in the warm water watching this small creature in its home, you're witnessing something that has repeated across millions of years, a scene that has played out billions of times in the history of this planet. The mantis shrimp in its burrow, alert and armored and impossibly capable, is not just an animal but a living testament to evolution's creative power, a demonstration of what can emerge when time and selection pressure work on the raw material of life. Somewhere nearby, another mantis shrimp will emerge tonight to hunt. A smasher will search for snails and crabs, its clubs ready to deliver their double blow of impact and cavitation. A spearer will wait at its burrow entrance, barbed appendages poised to impale whatever drifts too close. Eggs will be tended in burrows throughout the reef, females fasting and vigilant, ensuring the next generation's survival. Larvae will drift in the plankton above, transparent and vulnerable, growing toward the day when they'll settle and claim their own territories. The cycle continues as it has always continued, powered by the sun and the chemistry of life, shaped by the endless filtering of death and survival, producing creatures like the mantis shrimp, perfect in their imperfection, deadly and beautiful, simple in form but complex in capability. They don't know they're extraordinary. They just live, doing what millions of years of evolution has prepared them to do, striking and seeing and remembering and surviving. And that, perhaps, is the most remarkable thing of all. The mantis shrimp doesn't need to know it, possesses some of the most sophisticated eyes in the animal kingdom. It doesn't need to understand the physics of cavitation or the material science of its clubs. It doesn't contemplate the strangeness of circular polarized light or wonder about its own place in evolutionary history. It simply is, existing in each moment with total commitment, using its abilities not for show but for survival, for territory, for reproduction, for all the practical business of being alive in a competitive world. We, watching from outside, can appreciate the strangeness and wonder of what the mantis shrimp represents. We can study its eyes and learn about light and vision. We can analyze its clubs and improve our materials. We can watch its behavior and glimpse something of cognition and memory in a very different kind of mind. The mantis shrimp gives us all this without trying, just by being what it is, and perhaps there's a lesson in that as well. The greatest gifts are often those that come from simply being authentic, from existing fully in one's nature without pretense or performance. As darkness settles over the reef, the day shift creatures retreat and the night shift emerges. The mantis shrimp adjusts to the change, its sensitive eyes still capable of detecting the reduced light, its other senses heightened. The water carries chemicals that tell stories about what's moving through the neighborhood. Vibrations through the substrate warn of approaching footsteps. The night is not quiet for those who know how to listen, and the mantis shrimp is fluent in the languages of reef communication. It may hunt tonight, or it may rest. Either choice is a gamble with trade-offs. Hunting brings the possibility of food, but also the risk of encountering predators or expending energy without reward. Resting conserves energy but guarantees hunger will eventually grow sharp enough to demand action. The mantis shrimp makes these calculations without conscious thought, guided by instincts honed across evolutionary time, modified by individual learning and experience. And somewhere above the reef, the water surface reflects the moon and stars, though down here at depth the light is too dim for such subtleties to matter. The mantis shrimp doesn't see stars. Its world is measured in meters, not light years, bound by reef and burrow and territory. Yet in its small domain, it is as sophisticated and capable as any creature needs to be, adapted exquisitely to its particular challenges, successful by the only measure that matters in evolution. It survives, and its offspring survive, and the lineage continues. Let yourself sink deeper now, into that peaceful space between waking and sleep, where thoughts become images and images become dreams. The mantis shrimp in its burrow, the reef at night, the slow movement of currents, and the ancient rhythms of tide and season, all of it continues whether we're watching or not. The ocean is patient. The creatures within it are patient. They have time measured in spans that make human lives seem like brief flickers. You are warm and safe, relaxing more deeply with each breath, each slow exhalation releasing a little more tension, a little more of the day's weight. The mantis shrimp is in its burrow, secure and watchful. The reef sleeps in its way, though sleep on a coral reef is relative, as some creatures rest while others wake. The ocean continues its endless motion, currents flowing, tides turning, the great planetary machinery of water and wind and rotation carrying all of us through time. And in this moment, suspended between awareness and dreams, you share something with that small creature on the distant reef. You both exist in this present moment, breathing, being, part of the same world, the same web of life that connects all things. The mantis shrimp doesn't know about you, and you'll never meet, but you're both here now, both alive, both part of something larger than either of you can fully comprehend. The story of the mantis shrimp is not complete. It continues tonight, tomorrow. Across all the reefs where they make their homes, new individuals hatch, grow, claim territory. Old warriors finally fall to predators, or age, or chance. Territories change hands, partnerships form and sometimes endure for decades. The dance of survival and reproduction and death and renewal continues without pause, writing new chapters in a story that began 400 million years ago and shows no sign of ending. Sleep comes softly now, like the tide rising, inevitable and gentle. Your breathing slows, deepens, becomes part of the rhythm of waves against shore, currents against reef. The slow pulse of the ocean that has continued since water first condensed from the clouds of the young earth. You are floating, drifting, letting go of thoughts and worries and the thousand small concerns of the day. They're not gone, just set aside for these hours of rest, waiting patiently for morning when you'll pick them up again if you choose. The mantis shrimp rests too, in its own way, saving energy but staying alert, conserving resources while remaining ready. This is the balance all creatures must find. The middle path between constant vigilance and exhausted collapse. Rest when you can, but remain aware of danger. Relax, but stay ready. It's wisdom written into biology, older than thought, older than consciousness. A pattern that works because it's been tested across billions of lifetimes. Good night to you, wherever you are in the world. Good night to the mantis shrimp in its burrow, watching the night reef with impossible eyes. Good night to all the creatures of the sea, hunting or resting, spawning or growing, living out their days in water that covers most of the planet. The ocean continues its ancient work, creating and supporting and recycling life, while you drift now into dreams, carried by stories of color and light and small warriors in rainbow armor. Sleep well, sleep deeply. The reef will still be there tomorrow, and so will its marvels, waiting for the next curious mind to discover them again.